speaking of Southern California and L.A., Eric Bieniemy's back. He's back. He is back in L.A. He's back at UCLA. He spent some time there years and years ago, but he is finalizing a deal to join UCLA staff as offensive coordinator / associate head coach for Deshaun Foster, who's now the head coach there, taking over for Chip Kelly, who left to go be the offensive coordinator in Columbus with Ohio State. And, there's a lot of discussion about, Eric Bieniemy and whether or not, he was going to get a head coaching job in the NFL at some point, or, he spent time as Washington's offensive coordinator last year, but apparently this is the move for him. And I did find somebody who's a big fan of Eric Bieniemy, and it appears to be Eric Bieniemy himself. He had an email that was sent to ESPN talking about his decision and talking about why he did not get hired as a head coach in the NFL. He said, quote, "I have had countless conversations and interviews with many teams, and I have been applauded and lauded. I can't say why certain decisions were or were not made, but it had nothing to do with a lack of anything on my end." So that is from Eric Bieniemy.
All right.
Who's a huge fan of Eric Bieniemy, based on some of the other conversations here. He also wrote he has no regrets with the Commanders' time and said that despite what everybody heard, he was not fired. He actually chose just not to stay. So there's that.
That's interesting. I mean, he's a new staff and everything. So anyway, isn't he, wouldn't you say his resume is actually a better resume than Deshaun Foster's?
Yes.
That's the odd thing about this is to go from interviewing for NFL head coaching jobs then to take, and I understand, he wants to call plays. It's a place he's familiar with. But there's also an element of he's going to help Deshaun out a ton, considering his experience and track record, having coached for a long time. And he's been through, at least, a lot of different scenarios, given his track record being with the Chiefs and last year with Washington. His track record, though, calling plays in college is not one. I mean, I think his most recent stop is at Colorado, if I believe back in, is it 2012, 2011? So hopefully that's not any indication of what their offense might look like moving forward. I mean, this is a tough spot for UCLA to be in. You lose your head coach at the time of year they did. You get Deshaun Foster. That's good, but you're heading into a new league with a first-year head coach, which can be a difficult transition, especially when it happens in February, right? So uphill battle in some ways, but I'll be curious to see what the offense looks like and how the offense performs versus a lot of these Big Ten opponents.
I think there has to be something that isn't all the way there with Eric Bieniemy. It's like in business, the market speaks. You can have a product and you can say, this is the greatest product ever in the history of products. It's amazing. It works. It's proven, and you should have it because it's the best. And if nobody buys it, maybe it is the best product out there, but the market says otherwise. I just get the feeling that that's Eric Bieniemy. Maybe he is a really, really fine football coach. Maybe he would be a fine head coach at this point in his career. Maybe he is a fine assistant head coach, offensive coordinator. But I just feel like the market has spoken on him. There is a reason, and it's more than just, I don't know, his ability to interview or whatever it may be. There's a reason why he's continuously passed over. And it's not, I do not believe, because it's just me, I do not believe it is racial. I do not. So I'll check that box off. That doesn't mean that that's true, because I'm a black man saying it, and that doesn't mean that I'm a sellout either. I'm just giving my true opinion. I just don't think. I think there's something more there.
Look up Johnson.
You talk about black folks, don't you? I do. I think there's something more there. I think there's something more there, and the market says that this isn't a head coach, and this is not a guy that we're going to hire as a head guy. I think that's the verdict. I mean, wouldn't you say that that's like a sensible conclusion?
Yeah, well, there was the stories out that, he didn't, quote unquote, interview well, that was part of the problem with Eric Bieniemy. I'm just saying, reading the email, and I've never met the guy, so I don't know him, but reading the email, he comes off as not very likable. Like, very, very into himself, very, I want to show you everything that I've done, and despite what you've heard, I chose not to return to watch. Like, there's just some of it just doesn't add up and doesn't make sense. And why wouldn't there be an opportunity to go back to Kansas City and be on Andy Reid's staff? Unless this is just because he wants to call plays and he wants to take this approach. It feels like the more you hear about him, the less people have kind things to say about him. Just my guess, my 2 cents on it. But what the hell?
I mean, some people aren't going to win the personality pageant. They're just not going to get first place. And coaching, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a phenomenal coach and can't get phenomenal results. So I'm not even going to rest it on the fact that, all right, maybe he doesn't come across as the most likable dude. I mean, you don't have to be the most likable dude
is that
to get a
feel?
gig.
Do you not feel like he's likable?
I don't know. I'm just saying he continues to get passed over. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what it is.
So going back to Colorado, because I did mention earlier that was kind of outside of Kansas City, which, it's tough to kind of differentiate. You have the title, but Andy Reid's calling plays, Patrick Mahomes is there, etc. So let's pick out another opportunity. The only other time he called plays was 2011, 2012 for Colorado, which, unfortunately both years they were absolutely dead last in scoring offense in the Pac-12, averaging under 20 points a game. And then they actually ranked 92nd in 2011 in total yards nationally, and then 119th. So they actually got worse during the time that he was there. So that's the hard part is he obviously hasn't called football at this level. Should that matter if you're a good play caller? No, of course not. If you can call plays, you can call plays. The one thing that's going to be different is, and I say this to a lot of college coaches, like you have to run the RPO or have RPO as part of your offense, only because in college football and the lower levels, when you have an ineligible that's allowed to get 3 yards downfield, it is cheating. I mean, it's literally cheating. I mean, I'm always like, think about 9 yards, what that looks like, right? Like it's almost 10 feet. Like you're allowing a dude to get almost 10 feet downfield, and you can still either hand off or throw the football. Like, that is so impossible for a defensive player at that level to discern what it is, that if you don't have it as part of your repertoire, part of your offense, you are allowing the defense to have an extreme advantage. So, you're probably going to be a little more RPO heavy in college than you are in the NFL for that reason, right? Just because the rules. And then how you go about building around the talent that you have there and developing those guys, et cetera. Like, all those things are going to be, I think big challenges, for him. As I think Chip Kelly built a foundation and they have talent there, but it'll be an adjustment for Eric Bieniemy, which is tough when you go from KC to Washington to UCLA, different talent, different abilities, and obviously different environments.
They're going into the Big Ten with a new, young, unproven head coach. Listen, I don't think there's too many people that wouldn't have a fine affinity for Deshaun Foster. I mean, great dude. I've known him as a player and I've known him as a coach. So I've had an opportunity to be around him while he's been on the sideline. And I think he's a bright young star in that industry as a coach. I just think this is going to be a tough one for him